Hey, everybody, this is Betsy Carmody. We've covered a lot of popular culture on our little podcast, but sometimes there's a few things that just get past us. That's where the Sacred Six steps in. From Star Trek to Major League Baseball, from the streets of Baltimore on the wire to the trails of the Camino de Santiago in Spain, the Sacred Six is there to deep dive on topics that deserve just a little more attention. So if you're looking to cover an item in popular culture from A to Z, check out the Sacred Six on the Popping Collars feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Pop, pop.
Hi, I'm Greg Knight.
Hey, I'm Ryan Parker.
And this is PCTV, a Popping Collars side project where we randomly select a current TV show that you should be streaming right now. Ryan and I have each picked 6 shows apiece from the top streaming apps. And this month, we're talking about the Peacock series, Poker Face.
What's it like? Always knowing the truth.
There's nothing mystical about it. I could just tell.
When anyone is lying.
Yeah. I know what you did, you psycho.
You're gonna find Charlie Kidd, and you're gonna bring it to me.
You live on the road, right? What's it like? Leave everything behind. Start fresh.
I got wolves on my fender. Oh, I gotta keep moving. Holy. It wasn't an accident. I think there's been a murder. Look out! I have been kind of a death magnet. I'm trying to figure out what happened.
You watch too much Dateline.
I could tell she was lying.
What is it? It's a woman's intuition?
No, it's not like a tampon commercial, okay? It's a real thing.
You're coming with me. Front seat of the trunk. Your choice.
I guess I'm not over the part where you're a human lie detector.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
You ever gamble? Because you can make a killing.
Nah.
Peacock.
I know, right?
Peacock.
I got a lot to say about Peacock later in industry.
Can't wait.
What a weird thing. Anyway, okay. Ryan, I got the log line for the show Poker Face. Would you like to hear it?
Well, you know I do.
Interesting. They don't give Natasha Lyonne's character a last name, so we'll just we'll go.
Is it Cole? Is it Charlie Cole?
Is that right? I can't remember her last name, so I'll have to. I've got to IMDb. I got to do the old IMDb. Make
Charlie
myself
Cale.
sound smart.
CALE. Charlie Cale.
There you go. Charlie has an extraordinary ability to determine when someone is lying. She hits the road with her Plymouth Barracuda, and with every stop encounters a new cast of characters and strange crimes she can't help but investigate and solve.
The CUDA.
Yeah, right. The CUDA,
yeah, that's
which
pretty
breaks
good
down immediately. As soon as she's
It's that's a good summary. Yeah, I mean that's fine.
Yeah, it's not bad. Honestly, what we're talking about here is a throwback show to like the 70s, 80s. So if you think if you think of the A-Team going from town to town and getting in adventures, or Dr. David Banner walking from town to town, getting in adventures, or Kung Fu going from town to town, getting in adventures, that's the show that we're talking about here.
Quantum Leap. Yep.
Yeah, totally.
I have to admit, when I first, when you mentioned this show, it had been on my radar. Huge Natasha Lyonne fan. We'll say more about that later. Mm-hmm. But I was a bit like, oh, okay, Peacock. Obviously, we're going to talk about that later. But in the first episode, it really feels like a movie. Yeah. And then that I was, okay, where are they going to go with this? And it immediately goes, road trip adventure, which I didn't see coming, and because I didn't really read a synopsis about the about the series or anything. But really, in that first episode, there's enough there to make you feel like all they have to do is stay in Las Vegas, or wherever they are in Nevada. But it really is an expansive, and you're never quite sure where you are. I mean, one moment we're in Texas, and the next moment we're in a retirement home that I'm not quite sure where it is, and then we're in the snowy mountains of Colorado. So she's not really going anywhere, in terms of purpose or direction. It's rather meandering.
Yeah, she's sort of crisscrossing across the United States. Not only do you not know where you are, you're never entirely sure how much time has passed either. Like she could be in a location for a decent amount of time, or it could be a decent amount of time since the last adventure, and you're never quite sure. The running thread through this whole thing is that in the first episode, it sets up that Charlie has run afoul of like some kind of mobster
casino
in Vegas.
Yeah.
And she's being chased by the mobster's kind of what is it, like enforcer, played by Benjamin Bratt.
Yep.
So the thread through the show's episodic. Like every episode sort of stands alone in the same vein as like a Columbo or a Murder, She Wrote or a Matlock or something like that. But the thread that runs through is that towards the end of the episode, or at some point during the episode, she's going to have to leave wherever she is because the Benjamin Bratt character is getting closer to her, and so she has to move. He's
been tipped off. Yeah, and you realize, not to give anything away, but you're by the final episode, you realize that her journey over the course of those first 10 episodes has been about a year. So while we're not sure, each place that she's in, for example, she's finally caught. That's also not a spoiler. I mean, it was always going to happen, but the way in which it happens and what happens is you couldn't really predict it. So that's about a year. And one of the things I liked about all of this together is some of that stuff just doesn't matter, right? Like the brilliance for me of the show was watching these writers essentially come up with the perfect crime, like the perfect murder in most cases, for about 2/3 of the film, and then the final act believably unraveling that murder, and bringing that person to quote unquote justice. So it's kind of a high wire act in a way, and I found it very believable and very effective.
Yeah, I mean that's the unique thing about the show, and this will like bleed into my hot take kind of coming up.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But the unique thing about the show is that it's not really a whodunit. Like who did it at the very beginning of each episode, and why. Yeah, the motivation and everything. So the trick of the show is, how is Charlie going to figure out who done it, right? Because the audience, as an audience member, you're way ahead of where she is in knowledge about the crime itself.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting way of telling a story, right? Because it's like it's not a mystery for you to solve. It's a mystery for this character to solve. And the ride that you're taking is, how are you going to get there?
Yeah.
Which just goes to my take, which is that this is a Rian Johnson creation. We talked a little bit about Rian Johnson in our last episode when we were talking about Star Wars, and how he kind of took the Star Wars assignment and went in a very, I would argue, bold and creative direction with it. I stand by that. I think that Rian Johnson's Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi, is maybe the best Star Wars anything. Certainly the best Disney Star Wars creation, I would say.
I'm with you.
Kind of alongside Andor. And then outside of that, I would say one of the better Star Wars anythings, period. I just think that
it's essentially a rehash of episode 4. I want to hear more about that, but I can see your notes. I mean, I think he understands Star Wars.
I think he understands pop culture.
There you go. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. So that's my note, is that, you remember back around Avengers time and Age of Ultron time, and people were like, oh man, Joss Whedon's the perfect person to make these movies because he's just steeped in pop culture and he just understands pop culture better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think what we're starting to realize is that Rian Johnson understands pop culture probably better than any other creator because he can drift through all these very different worlds. So if you think of this show, if you think about the Knives Out series, if you think about Star Wars, if you think about Brick, if you think about all the different things that he's had a hand in, they're all very different from each other, but they always take an aspect of pop culture and flip it a little bit so that you're seeing it from a very different angle, but it's still the thing that you've been watching the entire time. And I just think that that's genius. I think he's a creative genius when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And apparently I don't know, excuse me, I don't know him personally. but apparently he's not a dick.
I would hope not. Yeah. So that's the other Joss Whedon distinction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I hate to say that's bad to say, but, yeah, I think you're right. I think, what he's done with the whodunit, for example, even though that's not necessarily what this is, but when you think about the Knives Out series, which are just incredibly fun and clever. I think he's I kind of sit up, when his name is attached to something.
Just putting a bow on the Star Wars thing really quickly, when he first signed up to do that Last Jedi movie, I think he was signed on to do another Star Wars trilogy. And after whatever fan backlash came from the Star Wars discourse, which, as we're seeing right now with the Acolyte, Star Wars internet discourse is probably the most toxic fan base discourse in existence. It's just like, they're
all happy to be on the dark side.
There are these gatekeepers that just refuse creators to make anything interesting in Star Wars. They just want you to play the hits over and over again, right?
And then when you do play the hits, they ridicule you for just rehashing the hit.
For rehashing. Yeah.
You can't win. You cannot win.
So all that is to say that it was kind of a blessing in disguise that he didn't get locked into being the Star Wars guy, and is able to explore things like Poker Face and working with another really creative artist like Natasha Lyonne.
Yeah.
Who, if you just look at things like Russian Doll and like all of the things that she's involved in artistically, like this feels like a really compelling marriage of ideas to have someone like Natasha Lyonne fronting a Rian Johnson series. It just feels like the creativity is off the charts. And I think that goes to show like all the special guests that come in on this show, like Hong Chow, like Ron Perlman, like, Charles Melton, who was just in December last year, like all of these sort of up and coming actors and really great sort of creative people get to hang out on this show with these really creative people who are fronting the whole thing. So,
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, my hot take, and maybe we come back to this in the theology corner, but these are just wildly entertaining morality plays. We'll come back to that.
No, I think that's right. I mean, what that made me think of was the Lil Rel Howery episode, and this idea of like, how things can get away from you, how your crime can basically get away from you. And you just have to commit more crimes to cover up your original crime and like all that.
That's right.
Yeah, totally. What is your best scene, sequence, episode, or storyline?
I really enjoyed every episode. I don't want to be like dismiss, that sounds like it's kind of a, easy answer, but I don't know. I enjoyed Time of the Monkey. I thought that was quite good because I don't know if like sequence works here. I think all the episodes are so involved. But yeah, I'm just going back over the list just to double check. But I also did like episode 9, Escape from Mountain. But for me, it was Time of the Monkey just because I thought Judith Light and Apatha Murkerson, I think is who plays They play Joyce and Irene, which are the guest stars.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that because they were a couple of badasses, and I think they had it felt like they were having a lot of fun in those roles as kind of ex-hippie terrorists.
How can we help you?
Betty told me everything. About how she saw you two tasing each other in the hot house. That's how you tricked the nurses into thinking that Ben was having a heart attack. When he'd really been dead for hours. Pretty clever. But you missed one detail.
What might that be?
Ben's heart monitor recording went totally flat after your tasing stunt at 2:23, the time of the monkey. But the nurses tried to revive him with a defibrillator. If he'd really been wearing his heart cuff monitor, it would have registered those shocks.
Ain't that sweet? And all this for a mother who sent us to prison for 30 years.
You deserved it then. And you deserve it now. Wax up your shuffleboard pucks, ladies. As soon as I tell my new FBI buddy about all this, well, yeah, man, you're going right back to Bedford.
Was kind of unique.
Just trying to get revenge, on Reed Birney.
30 years later on Reed Birney, who is awesome. Reed Birney is so good.
Oh, Reed Birney's so good, man. Like, he was in, and Betsy hates this movie because I made her watch it for an episode of the pod, but he was in a movie called Strawberry Mansion that came out a couple of years ago. And it's
God,
like
that movie is terrible.
It's this total art film. It's like an extended dream sequence for like an hour and a half. But I just thought it was really like I was locked in on that thing, and Reed Birney is so good in it.
Yeah.
I was like but no, like, speaking of pop culture and being steeped in pop culture, when Judith Light appeared on screen, immediately my mind goes to Who's the Boss, right? Like, that's the very first place my mind goes to. And then I'm like thinking to myself, what has Judith Light done since Who's the Boss? Like, dude, is she going from Who's the Boss to this?
Did you watch Transparent?
Oh, Transparent. That's right. I forgot about Transparent.
Yeah, dude. She was the mom, kind of the matriarch of the family.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right. Like, it's so funny when people like Judith Light show up, or Tim Meadows and Ellen Barkin in the episode that they're in.
Yes.
And you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, where
I think that's
from?
There's not anything to say. This is jumping ahead, but I don't care because it's part of this conversation we're having now. We did the Come For, Stay For, and that really was, as the series progressed for me, it was like, well, I'm here for Ryan Johnson and Natasha Lyonne, right? And they're great together. And it'd be awesome to see some of those conversations that they must have had about beats and just working together. But really, for me, it was stay for the supporting cast each week, the guest stars, because they run the gamut of kind of legends of TV, like Judith Light, up to new folks like Lil Rel, and and then in the middle you have like you just said, Tim Meadows. Like, what the? Where's he been?
I know, right?
So yeah, that was I appreciated about every episode how they were. And I think that's down to just the creative power and the inspiration that these folks bring to projects. Like, I think people want to work with Ryan Johnson. People want to work with Natasha.
No, I think that's true. I mean, that's certainly borne out by the guest stars that he's able to get for the Knives Out series and stuff.
Oh my gosh, it's a killer roster, right? Yeah. Pardon the no pun intended.
So my favorite was one of the episodes that you mentioned, which is the penultimate episode, Escape from S Mountain.
Okay, S Mountain. Sorry.
I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling, whether or not I edit it. But the thing that I love about that episode is that, for the most part, in every episode, Charlie is generally clueless but in control. Like, she's never in a situation where she's vulnerable. Really, like, she she comes upon a crime. She eventually figures out that somebody's lying, and then she tries to figure out why they're lying and solves the crime. And she's never really like under threat by the criminals in those stakes ever, really.
Yeah.
She's always under threat of Benjamin Bratt showing up at any point. But the little sort of episodic crimes, she seems to be pretty in control of until you get to this episode, and she is just wiped out, man. She's like in a car wreck. She's laid up in a cabin. Like, you know, she's
buried under a tree.
She's buried under a tree. She's in rough shape in this episode.
Yeah,
and
she looks
everybody has an advantage over her. So like Joseph Gordon-Levitt stars in this episode, and like he's got a leg up on her. Everything is kind of stacked against her. Mm-hmm. And so the stakes are just off the charts. You're just like, oh man, like if you told me that Charlie's not going to make it out of this episode, I would totally believe you. But she still gets out, and she still solves the crime. And she's still, you know, even from like laying down on a couch with like a broken leg or whatever, she's able to like figure all of this stuff out. So I just thought that was just a really clever way of telling a story of, if you incapacitate your hero, can they still be the hero of the story? And she is. Yeah.
And it does service to the final episode as well, right? Where there's kind of a homecoming, and she's in, you know, another perilous position, right? Because it seems like now she seems like she's guilty of the perfect crime of the episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've kind of tipped my hat on best performance. What about you?
So here's the thing. So obviously for me, it's a come for Natasha Lyonne, but for me, it was a stay for Benjamin Bratt. I've got to admit, and this is probably a failing on my part, never really been a Benjamin Bratt guy. Like, I don't know what it would have been that I was supposed to like him in, that I was just not feeling it. I think it was maybe like, he was one of the NYPD Blue guys, right? Yeah, he was one of the replacements for like Jimmy Smits or something on that show. But I think that was when he had like that big breakout, like towards sort of the more recent side of his career. And then he started showing up in things like Miss Congeniality and like, you know, a bunch of other things where he played like the romantic lead and stuff.
Yeah.
I just never like, I couldn't get locked into Benjamin Bratt. Like, he was always kind of like, I don't know, it was a little too like leading man, a little too sort of show and no substance kind of, for me personally.
Yeah.
And then when he starts just reciting the lyrics to Hook by Blues Traveler in the last episode, I'm locked in. I'm like, you had me at hello, Benjamin Bratt.
Suck it in. Suck it in. Suck it in. If you're in Tintin or Anne Boleyn, make a desperate move or else you'll win. And then begin to see what you're doing to me. This MTV is not for free. It's so PC, it's killing me so desperately. I'll sing to thee of love, sure, but also of rage and hate and pain and fear of self. And I can't keep these feelings to myself. I've tried. Well, no, in fact, I lied. Could be financial suicide, but I've got too much pride inside to hide or slide. I'll do as I'll decide and let it ride until I've died, and only then shall I abide this tight of catchy little tunes of hit 3-minute ditties. I want to bust all your balloons. I want to burn all of your cities to the ground. I've found I will not mess around unless I play. Then, hey, I will go on all day. Hear what I say. I have a prayer to pray. That's really all this was. When I'm feeling stuck and need a buck, I don't rely on luck, because the hook brings you back.
You really are the worst.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, what a scene.
No, I mean, it's just, and it's not even, it's like it's the part of the song where John Popper just starts going off. It's like that bridge section, you know, and he just starts reciting it like it's dialogue. And at first you're like, what is he doing? And then all of a sudden it starts to become clear to you that he's just singing. He's just saying the lyrics to Hook.
And when he does it, you're like, is this a work of philosophy? Did he? Right? Like you're like, it's right. Like the hook brings you back.
The hook brings you back. Exactly. Like, yes. And, and all of this show that you put around yourself, because that's John Popper sort of reacting to like them becoming like an MTV phenomenon and stuff like that. And all of this artifice that you put around yourself, trying to make yourself into something that you're not, the way that Charlie is, like the hook's always going to bring you back to reality.
I now want to return. I want to rewatch. I want to rewatch every episode because in the Future of the Sport episode, which I think is episode 4 about dueling race car drivers, there's a fish hook is actually used to commit the crime.
Right.
And I wonder if there are like hook Easter eggs in other episodes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Like, could we find fish hooks or crane, staffs or anything like that?
Yeah.
But yeah. That's
so for me, it was this was the most compelling, sinister. Like every time he showed up on screen, I was like, "Oh no,
yeah,
here we go."
And he is a handsome gentleman.
He is a handsome guy.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not
handsome guy.
And to hear you tell the story, I was a Cincinnati kid, methodically fleecing my way across the country until my master plan was thwarted. Dude, I was a dumbass. I had no grand plan, no map with yarn or anything. I figured out I could do this thing, and it worked, so I did it for a while. I had money for dumb shit. I stayed at some nice hotels, but it was kind of boring. I figured it wouldn't last, and it didn't. So, and now, you know what? I'm doing fine. I like my life. I like my job. I'm bummed that you're firing me, but I'll find another job. And I'll probably like that one too. I'm still pretty much a dumbass, and I'm doing just fine.
Holding an ace of spades.
Bullshit.
6 of hearts.
Bullshit.
10 of spades. You're not reading the cards.
How could I read the cards?
You're reading me. It's not like it's one thing, like my eye twitches or something.
Nah.
It's just a general.
Yeah.
You can just tell.
Just that something is off. That's the best way to describe it. I could just tell.
When anyone is lying. 100% of the time. I'm gonna touch my nose.
No, it doesn't work like that. I'm not a soothsayer. I can't predict the future. There's nothing mystical about it. Just if someone is intentionally lying, that's it.
Let's go to Theology Corner.
Well, this is where we're going to live. I mean, it's chock-a-block, buddy. I mean, I'm going to jump in. I mean, she's Jesus. Like, she's a prophet, And this, I would love to do a little bit of digging here. And I know this series, when did it premiere? Look at it.
This came out 2 years ago, right? Poker Face, was it 2022?
They announced the series in 21. It premiered, debuted on January 23.
Oh, okay.
I purchased a book. Let me see, Prophet, which is, if I'm saying it correct, is co-authored by a woman named a person named Sin Blaché and Helen McDonald. Helen McDonald, some of your listeners may be familiar with. She wrote H is for Hawk, which I thought was a quite remarkable book. But I'm getting to a point. Prophet is a contemporary sci-fi novel that was published, I believe, earlier this year or the end of last year. And it follows 2 characters, one of whom has the ability to tell when somebody's lying or not. And that's just taken for granted. Like, this person can do this thing. Not only can he tell if they're lying, he can also tell, and this is pertinent to the story, if things are fake or not. like, and for a while he works for, Sotheby's, for example, like verifying items, so it's interesting to me that in pop culture, there's, it's just two cases here, but there's a character who can tell the truth, right?
Yeah.
Who knows the truth. And I know where you're going to go with this, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but in a way, I think there's this idea of like being able to just call BS on something, and know that's BS. Because we do, right? Like we know that. We're like, why are people being duped by this bullshit? We know, why can't they see this, right? Why can't everybody see this for what it is? And like, so to have a character like that is extremely refreshing, I think. And then it opens up doors for all these conversations about morality and truth and existence. And there's, in the second episode, right, when she breaks down in New Mexico, there's all these conversations about Buddhism. Mm-hmm. And one of the things she never says to the woman truck driver, that's kind of the innocent figure that gets caught up in the crime, she never calls bullshit on anything she says. Right. And she is consistently calling that on basically everybody that she meets.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what prophecy is. Prophecy is recognizing the truth in a world that's trying to cover it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the prophetic writing that we have in the Bible is like, it's these people who are social outcasts who are saying what you've built for yourself is a lie, and the truth is actually this. And it's always speaking to what is, never like what, is coming, or like what, is in the future or anything like that. It's about like, no, you're deceiving yourself about what you think the world is. It's actually this. Yeah. And I just think that's got to be a commentary that Leone and Johnson have, like, running through this series, is that, this woman, Charlie, is not a detective. She's not like a police officer. She's not like a private investigator. She's a BS detector. Like, that's what she is. And in a world like the one that we live in, which is constantly trying to deceive you, that becomes almost like a superpower. Just the ability to sort of smell the truth and to know what the actual truth is in the midst of a world full of lies.
Yep.
I think it's a powerful commentary about how power works in the world, and how power is built around this idea of keeping you misinformed or keeping you distracted through social media.
Yeah.
Which is its own kind of lie, right? Like, you look at these pictures of your friends, you look at me in Norway having a great time. What you don't see is that I had a day where I walked 11 miles in the rain, in the cold rain, hating life and being miserable. I didn't show you those pictures, right? Like,
oh, come on. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, like everything around us is sort of a deception, and we fall for it because it's this great magic trick. And to have someone say, this is all kind of BS, right? Like, that's a powerful prophetic voice in the world. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so powerful that in a novel like Prophet, again, it's titled Prophet. This character is weaponized, right? He is immediately co-opted by the American intelligence community, for military purposes. And because he is seen as a powerful weapon, right? Because he can do that. So yeah, I think it would not surprise me at all if that, like, in Rian Johnson's mind, like, this is my response to the world of mis and disinformation that we live in now.
Yeah. Yeah. And
isn't it refreshing somebody can tell us the truth?
Right. And people not being who they say, right? Like, politicians are really great at this, of like, saying one thing in one season and saying a different thing in another season, and trying to act as if they were totally consistent the entire time.
Yeah.
Right? A perfect example down here in Florida is like, we have Marco Rubio as one of our senators, who is just lambasted by Donald Trump in the 2016 election, called like Little Marco, like really like
embarrassing.
Embarrassed, on a national stage. And now when he's trying to be vice president, acts as if, oh no, that was totally consistent. I was totally on board with being demeaned and, insulted on a national platform by the person who I want to be the VP for. It's like,
by the way, that's every Republican now. I mean, look at Nick.
Yeah, but
any of these, there's no integrity, right? There's no self-respect.
Right. I guess that's the thing, right? It's like, how can you have such little self-respect that you don't understand how your lies have made you into less than human? It's just like, it's so bizarre to me.
There's something here too about being true to yourself and having a relationship to the truth in this way that also makes you an outsider.
Right. Yeah. You're likely going to lose. Yeah.
In terms of prophets, as we know them kind of theologically in scripture. And, I thought it was very compelling in the end to realize that she has a family, because we encounter her sister, and I don't want to give too much up, but her sister says to her two things that I think are worth talking about for a second. See what you think about. One of the things that she says to her in a kind of a fit of anger is, she says, "You are ruinous." Which is contrary to everything that we've seen in the course of the episode, because all she's done is help people.
Yeah.
And then as she's about to depart at the end of that meeting in the final episode, she says, "But I bet you've done some good. I bet you've helped some people, and they probably love you. But as a family, we can't be around you." And I think that just immediately threw me back to like commentary, passages of scripture about, the kind of the truth, if you will, if we can use that here, kind of putting you at odds with your family, for example.
Yeah.
Or, you always hurt the ones you love, right? So it's clear that she loves her sister and her niece and her family, but this ability she has puts her at odds with them, potentially with the people closest to her.
Yeah. I mean, you would say a prophet is without honor in their own home.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely right. It's like, what we see as sort of a superpower and this tremendous gift also comes with this curse, right? This, speaking truth to power doesn't usually net you a lot of profit and gain in the world. And certainly, what it has given Charlie in this world is a broken down barracuda. and and like running for her life, and that's what the truth has given her. But she's also not part of this corrupt Vegas system that Ron Perlman's running either. It's like so she's free, but she's free in this very like in this way that doesn't really gain her anything. So
one of the other things too, and I don't, we may wrap shortly, but I think one of the things in the kind of theology corner is how classic this feels in terms of like Gothic literature, or it kind of felt like in some parts like Poe, or something like contemporary Twilight Zone. And there's this idea, and then you've already said this, right? Like you have to commit more crimes to cover up for the initial crime, and just, but also kind of like the ambiguity, of life, of like suffering, pain, all these kinds of things that, we often try to explain theologically that are, I think in episode 2, it's like, essentially, this is just life. There's no explaining this. It's, the rain falls on the just and the unjust, and I don't know. I found that quite intriguing as well.
Yeah. Let's do some industry corner. This is our first Peacock conversation.
What is Peacock? That's my industry comment. I don't have any. What is it? What are we doing?
Okay. All right. I think I understand what it is, but I'm going to take you back in time, Ryan, to 1996, I think, when the Olympics decided to run 3 pay-per-view channels on cable and maybe satellite, maybe like burgeoning satellite.
Yeah.
And these channels were called Red, White, and Blue. And the idea was that you could watch 24-hour coverage of Olympic events on one of these channels. It would just be like straight feed, straight sports
wall
the
to wall.
entire day. Yeah. And coming up on 2020 and the Summer Games in Tokyo, this was what Peacock was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the Olympic launch of the NBC streaming app. And they were going to do two things that were supposed to net them a ton of subscribers. One is they were getting The Office back from Netflix, so people would just watch The Office all day. And two was they were launching this thing with the Olympics so that you could get 24-hour Olympic coverage of whatever you wanted, nonstop. This was going to be your source. And the pandemic effed it up. And as a result, they launched with The Office that nobody really was watching anymore because, it turns out that people watch The Office and Friends because they were on Netflix, not because they were The Office and Friends, right? And they had no Olympic Games because there was a global pandemic. So I was convinced that Peacock would be something that would be gone by now. And I'm fascinated at the fact that they're still in business. Like, I just think that, I'm fascinated that Paramount Plus is the one that's getting bought and possibly sold off, and that Peacock is the one that's going to survive. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, Paramount's complete disarray, but the Peacock, is that the output for Universal?
Peacock is, Universal. So Universal NBC. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm looking at other titles, and it seems like from some of the branding, it seems like there may be some good shows. Like, I watch Poker Face, and I'm like, I'll give this other series a try because it kind of looks tonally like Poker Face. You know what I mean? Like, there are a handful of series on there, but it's not much. I mean, the Community's on there, The Office. Yeah, like their original programming. I don't know. I have to maybe give another series or two a shot.
They've stumbled into a few hit reality shows that I don't, like The Traitors became a big hit when it came out, and they've had some spikes in subscriptions because the NFL linked playoff games to Peacock.
Yeah.
So there were some playoff games that were Peacock exclusive. And so they saw surges in subscribers for those games and stuff. But otherwise, it's kind of what a weird app. I imagine that this summer, when the Olympics are firing back up again, that you'll see more sort of Peacock.
Well, I was going to ask you if that's what you thought, if this was going to be a boost for them.
I think so.
People do tune in, right?
I think now that they're back on the regular sort of Olympic schedule, that people are going to tune in. If only because you can run an entire Peacock channel of nothing but those genius Kevin Hart, Snoop Dogg Olympic series things.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I would just stay up and watch it constantly. So yeah. The Peacock is a weird bird sitting out here in the streaming wars, and I think it's kind of unique that it's still around. I would have expected it to have gotten swallowed up by Netflix or something by now, but
yeah.
Oh, professional wrestling. That was the other thing that Peacock they got in bed with the WWE really early, and so they were able to get subscribers through professional wrestling and stuff. So
wow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird mishmash of stuff that they've got on there, but good for them. It's kind of like the little scrappy streamer that could.
Well, the question, it's kind of the joke. It's like, well, who passed on Poker Face for it to land there? Why? But I don't know if it works. So
yeah, and I don't know what kind of deals. Is Knives Out? Is that a Universal property? I mean, I don't know.
That's on Netflix though.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, it is. It's a Netflix thing. That's right. Yeah, it's sometimes these things get tied around and you never quite know it's the wild
what exists where.
Yeah. It's a little Wild West out there. I will say, like, we've had recent updates on streamers. So, like, for instance, Paramount getting bought out by Skydance, and so the future of that streamer is kind of up in the air.
Well, no, they didn't. She rejected the deal.
Oh, really?
And their stock tanked this week. It's a mess.
Oh, that is a mess then. Wow, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But then you've also heard sort of scuttlebutt of things like Apple TV and some other streamers being folded into Netflix, too. Mm-hmm. Like there seems to be some consolidation going on at the streaming level, akin to what we saw earlier this year with the Disney, Hulu, all of that stuff starting to get contracted into one app.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It's going to be, I think the streaming renaissance that everyone expected to have is like all those chickens are coming home to roost. All those peacocks are coming home to roost. And
and everything. I mean, just think about, just the industry as a whole is, who knows?
Who knows? Who knows what our next show is going to be? We should.
I think you do. The Wheel of Death knows.
Let's see where we land.
I'm going to solve. All right. Cornucopia cabinet.
And Ryan, the wheel has selected your HBO show, which I don't have a pick from you for. So what HBO show would you like us to watch? I guess Max. What Max show would you like for us to check out?
I'm going to say The Sympathizer.
The Sympathizer.
And I think you're going to love it.
Wow.
It's based on, I believe, Pulitzer Prize winning novel.
Not only have I not seen it, I've never even heard of it. So you've really taken me on a journey here.
It's brand new. Robert Downey
Jr. Okay.
Plays about 5 different roles.
I have heard about this. Okay.
You're going to love it. Lots of theology corner opportunities and a really kind of profound study on like truth and what is truth and truth telling and storytelling. And yeah, I think you're going to like it. There's a companion podcast with it, like most Max shows have now, like most any show has. That's quite good. And it's the first 3 episodes, I believe, were directed by Park Chan-wook, who love. And so visually, it's quite stunning. Yeah, but I don't want to give too much away. So check it out.
And I got only 7 episodes to get through.
Yep, in and out. Yep.
Nice. I love it. You know what? It'll keep my Robert Downey Jr. Renaissance, post-Marvel Renaissance train going, because I just did Oppenheimer on the plane back from Norway. So
is that the only time you've seen Oppenheimer?
Yeah, I missed it. I totally missed it.
Man, you didn't catch seat shaking audio in the theater. Oh my goodness. That is not I'm sorry. That's not an airplane movie. How did you do that?
I don't know. It was fine. I would say,
it does take up about half of your flight though.
You know how, yeah, exactly. You know how when you're flying back from Europe and you get the chance to watch like 5 movies because it's just a hell of a long way to fly across the ocean. I got 2 movies. I got Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh my gosh. and you may not have had time for both of those. Wow.
Hollywood, get some editors. That's my note to Hollywood right now. Get some editors in there, man. Okay. So next up, we will be talking about The Sympathizer. Ryan, thanks for taking a road trip across the country with me, solving crimes, getting in adventures. Where should we go next?
Vietnam.
It's going to be a hell of a long drive to get there, but we'll settle in. I think the CUDA can make it. So
I can't wait.
All right. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.